Why is Freud so obsessed with his mother? This is the strangest Oedipus complex I've ever seen. Hey there, hirelings. Before we begin, I just want to make a quick note. This video will touch on themes of mental health, trauma, violence, sexual themes, and sexual violence as well, so viewer discretion is advised. When I first started this channel, I didn't anticipate having to delve so deeply into my own psyche. Anonymity in these tube networks is nearly impossible, but with everyone connected, it's a challenge to even stay hidden while trying to remain relevant, or I guess maybe become relevant in the zeitgeist of whatever time or universe this recording finds itself in. And no, this isn't a VPN ad, believe me. That's not going to cover your tracks anyways. Now you see, from the age of 10, I learned to navigate the shadows, gathering intel and snatching whatever I could find that may be useful later. Now this knack for stealth has led me to very odd locations, and in this case it led me to my latest adventure, exploring the haunting realm of Silent Hill. Specifically, we're diving into Silent Hill 2, which first crept into one of the realms on the PlayStation 2 back in 2001 AD. My past experiences resonate deeply with the Dread Realms that I mentioned briefly in my last video, which you can find in the link down below. Okay. Oh, that works too. I guess you can click on that one up there. But rather than rehash what others have articulated time and time again, far better than I even can, let's just jump straight into the chilling history of this interactive and my raw thoughts on it. My journey began when I received a mysterious letter from one of the unseen servants here at this tavern. It hinted at an impending remake of this interactive and suggested that I search the storage for more clues. So I ventured into the basement, and rummaging through some old boxes, I unearthed some dust-covered arcanotech and a disc-based media. After a few technical hiccups, of course, I managed to get everything running and decided to stream my entire experience. That way I wasn't alone. Now, the development of Silent Hill 2 began back in 1999, riding the wave of the original Silent Hill success. Crafted by Team Silent within Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo, or KCET for short. This installment drew significant inspiration from the Russian classic Crime and Punishment. The game's artistic vision channels the unsettling styles of filmmakers like David Lynch and Alfred Hitchcock, creating an eerie atmosphere that lingers in your mind long after you put down the controller. At the heart of Silent Hill 2 is James Sunderland, a man haunted by grief and guilt. He receives a letter from his deceased wife, Mary, beckoning him to the very town that bears the game's name. Now, this eerie summons sets off a journey through a fog-laden landscape filled with psychological horrors that reflect James's inner turmoil, which we will delve a little bit more into later. In Crime and Punishment, the protagonist Rodion Raskolnikov grapples with the moral implications of his actions, convincing himself that his transgressions serve the greater good. However, unlike Raskolnikov, James's story unfolds after the act has been committed. We don't witness the crime. Instead, we delve into the haunting consequences and justifications that led him to Silent Hill. Or rather, the nearby town of Sunnyvale, since the path to Silent Hill itself is, mysteriously blocked. Actually, in fact, most of James's journey occurs in Sunnyvale, which initially seems like a refuge, but soon changes and reveals its own horrors. The narrative even cleverly utilizes a rowboat to transport James across a foggy lake, symbolizing his passage from a semblance of safety into the depths of his own psyche. This transition highlights the duality of the setting, an overall tranquil facade that masks the terrifying truths lurking beneath the surface. As we explore, we're not just wandering through a haunted town, we're navigating a labyrinth of James's mind. like literally and figuratively, where each shadow and sound resonates with his guilt, longing, and unresolved emotions. It's a haunting reflection of how the past can shape our present, compelling us to confront the darkness within. As we traverse the haunting landscapes of Sunnyvale with James, we find ourselves not just exploring a town shrouded in fog, but also delving into the murky depths of human emotion and guilt. This psychological horror mirrors the experiences one might encounter in the Dread Realms, where the environment reflects the darkest fears and regrets of its inhabitants. Much like Silent Hill, every shadow conceals a more profound truth in these realms. These realms are steeped in despair, crafted from the fears and regrets of their dark lords, just as James is drawn into a nightmarish reflection of his psyche. The Dread Realms ensnare souls in tragic tales of their own making. Each land within these realms serves as a prison for those whose past sins and traumas echo throughout their twisted landscapes. But what exactly are these Dread Realms? Information is scarce to nearly non-existent for those who don't venture into the unknown themselves. Whispers among the right circles or a few crumbling tomes in Candlekeep might hold some fragments, but the true nature of these lands still remain elusive. From my personal experiences, however, I can assure you that something far more sinister lurks in those shadows. You see, the place you occupy now, I assume, is the material realm. Only those really on the outside of that, or those who may wield magic, are kind of aware of the planes beyond. You have also the ethereal plane, where you might encounter things like ghosts. There's the Feywild, where that's home to magical creatures like fairies, of course, because fairies makes sense, you know. In stark contrast lies the Shadowfell, where despair reigns, and being ringed in the back end by the necrotic is a normal pastime. Sorry, I don't know how else to say it, it's messed up. The Dread Realms form a remote section of the Shadowfell, existing in a nebulous space that no one can pinpoint. Even powerful beings like Elminster can only send agents like Volo to explore its depths. Now, my own introduction to these lands came at the tender age of 12. During a traumatic encounter with my trainer at the time, he became possessed and decided to gouge out my eye with a dagger, which is why it looks the way it does now. Eventually, it led me to a secret book hidden in his chambers, a secret that began my lifelong entanglements with the Dread Realms. So let's delve into these shadowy domains and the infamous dark powers that manipulate them, starting with the tale of Ravenloft and its Dark Lord, Strahd van Zarevich. Many of you have heard of realms like Ravenloft, or particularly the infamous Barovia, often likened to tales of Transylvania and Count Dracula. The Dread Realms are an intricate tapestry of locations drawn from various timelines and realities, ensnared within the prison system that is inside the Shadowfell. Each land is shrouded in mist, acting as both a barrier and a binding force. Every realm harbors a singular individual whose actions drew them into this dark prison. While the nature of these mists remains a mystery, it's clear they possess a consciousness of their own, subtly manipulating the fates of those trapped within, while also allowing the Dark Lords to close off those misty barriers from allowing others to cross through their respective landmasses. The term Dark Powers appears in ancient tomes, a broad label for the sinister forces at play. From the original media and tomes that I could find on the subject, the origin of these realms can be traced back to Barovia itself and its Dark Lord that I mentioned, Strahd von Zarovich, whose tale is one of obsession and betrayal. He was once a nobleman who fell madly in love with Tatiana, the fiancée of his brother Sergei. In the material plane, I've come across some reality saying that Barovia was from the Sword Coast, where I'm from. Others are from Earth, and even a few saying that it was coming from Eberron. Either way, each realm and timeline I've heard seem to share the same similarities in its stories. On the eve of Sergei's wedding, desperate to win Tatiana's love, Strahd made a pact with the Dark Powers, or even in some cases death itself, trading his humanity for immortality in a desperate attempt to stay young. This pact required the ultimate sin, fratricide. Consumed by his desires and being madly in love with his brother's betrothed, he was all too willing to take part. So, on the day of the wedding, Strahd murdered his brother and drank his blood, turning himself into a vampire. The stories seem to not be concise here. In some instances, he chases after Tatiana, who witnessed the entire event, trying to confess to her, only for her to fall to her death from a great height. In other instances, he uses his newfound vampiric power to mentally control Tatiana, making her forget about Sergei and fall in love with Strahd himself. Now in those versions, something else happens, usually an attempted coup trying to take over Barovia, causing the enchantment to disperse, and the memories of everything to rush back into Tatiana's mind. Which of course in turn causes a mental breakdown and eventual suicide as she climbs to the tallest tower and leaps from it. So really the only thing that matches between each story is that she falls to her death in each way. A part of Strahd's wish wasn't just to stay young, but also to gain the one he loves so desperately. The Dark Powers twist this wish by reincarnating Tatiana, only for her to be killed by his hands either directly or indirectly with each new version. This repetition mirrors the psychological torment faced by James Sunderland in Silent Hill 2, where guilt manifests into twisted realities, compelling him to confront the pain of his past. The whole act of Strahd was the catalyst that caused the mists to pull the land of Barovia as one of, if not the first, into the recorded history of the Dread Realms. Similarly, consider the land of Saronye that I mentioned in my first video, where the Dark Lord Anton Misroy reigns. A land mostly comprised of swamp and marsh, and where the magic of hoodoo, or voodoo, is probably familiar by some of your realms. Originally from Oerth, Anton was a spell singer using songs to cast memorized spells. I'm sure some of you may understand that he was a bard wizard multiclass. Okay, yes, I get it, please. I'm sorry, I apologize. Please stop. Okay. Once a talented spell singer, Anton's life took a dark turn when he discovered his wife in the arms of another. Misinterpreting their embrace as infidelity, Anton's rage drove him to commit unspeakable acts. He and his henchmen dragged the couple into quicksand, reveling in their pleas for mercy. Anton's neighbor offered the wife to use his shoulders to climb up and out of the quicksand, but of course, Anton watched as the man succumbed to the suffocation before using a pole to push his wife back into the depths. And with her final breath, she invoked the Dark Powers by cursing at Anton with mud and sand spraying from her lips. The couple, now recently deceased from their suffocation, were reincarnated as zombies and quickly reached out, pulling Anton down into the same fate. "I don't want to die!" he screamed as they tugged at him. "Don't let me die!" In a cruel twist of fate, the powers invoked yet again, and Anton was transformed into a zombie lord, trapped in a state of undead torment, forced to reckon with the consequences of his rage and jealousy. He became entwined with the land's magic and the voodoo lore that permeates Soranye, where the Loa, or Lua, or spiritual entities of the dead reflect the themes of betrayal and vengeance that haunt him. In the belief system of voodoo, there are hundreds, if not thousands, or maybe even double digits of the various types of Loa. The Loa are known to be divided into different groups or non-champs of similar likenesses. In voodoo, the Getty family of Loa is known to be the focal point of the realm of the dead. I'm sure those familiar with voodoo are probably familiar with the head of the family, Baron Samedi. Similarly, in the Dread Realms, before Anton's transformation into one of the undead, was the Loa of the land, and I do apologize for his name, Chickenbone. He is the guy that causes the zombification of people on their death in this land. But it was when Anton was transformed into a zombie lord on his death that the land was pulled into the realms of dread. There are reports that the mists made a copy of the land, leaving a disused state of the plantation and surrounding area in its place on Earth. Much like how we see the areas of Sunnyvale and Silent Hill. These tales of woe in the Dread Realms reveal a pattern. History is doomed to repeat itself. Each Dark Lord embodies the anguish and mistakes of their past, just as Strahd and Anton are bound to relive their tragedies. You see, in these lands, the boundaries of guilt, love, and revenge blur, echoing the essence of horror in literature and life. Here, one can't escape from the past, and the weight of their sins twist the realities all around them. Similarly, in Sunnyvale we find James, a tormented man by his own demons. He received a letter from his wife, who presumably died 3 years ago, beckoning him back to their special place. As he ventures into Silent Hill, he believes he's headed for the docks where they first met, only to encounter Maria, a haunting reminder of his guilt and unresolved desires. James's interactions with Maria reveal a complex web of emotions representing both punishment and longing. She bears an uncanny resemblance to his wife, and her presence acts as a twisted reflection of his sexual frustration, exacerbated, of course, by his wife's declining health. The interactive weaves these themes of repression and guilt into the very fabric of its nightmarish landscape, where every enemy, from the disturbing nurses to the monstrous double-legged creatures, embodies the turmoil brewing within him. So, everything... Oh, those creatures with the legs? Hold on, the creatures with the legs, is that like a metaphor for... Moreover, lurking in the shadows is the literal executioner, a relentless force that chases James throughout the fog-laden streets, mirroring his inner turmoil. The weight of his actions hangs over him as he grapples with the reality of having taken his wife's life, a decision steeped in ambiguity and conflict. Was it an act of mercy, frustration, or something more sinister? Just as in the Dread Realms where the past cannot be escaped, James too must confront the haunting echoes of his choices. Of course, we can't overlook Eddie, whose encounters in Silent Hill are disturbingly personal. Haunted by the memory of the man he shot not too long ago, he fled to Sunnyvale in a desperate attempt to escape the police. This flight is a clear indication of a man grappling with the weight of his first kill, struggling to come to terms with the brutal reality of his actions. In fact, each time we cross paths with Eddie, his paranoia and guilt manifest in increasingly violent ways. James, who's also wrestling with his own dark secrets, harshly criticizes Eddie for his laziness and gluttony, especially when it's clear that he could be helping someone like Laura, who is lost and alone in a town full of monsters. As Eddie spirals deeper into his own darkness, he becomes more dangerous, resorting to violence not only as a means of self-defense, but as a way to confront his overwhelming guilt. This descent into madness serves as a haunting reflection of the consequences of unchecked emotions and the burden of past actions.
I think he's dead. Take his gun. Take his gun. That's a good gun.
I killed a human being.
Are you gonna start puking too?
A human being.
That's a no? You seem oddly okay with this.
Mary. Did you really die 3 years ago?
You seem oddly okay with this. This is not your first time.
This realization about James's own capacity for violence struck me quite hard. If he hadn't killed before, we might have witnessed him emptying his own stomach in the toilet, just like Eddie did. This shared darkness hints at a deeper connection between the characters, each wrestling with their own demons in a town that amplifies their internal struggles. Meanwhile, Angela, her struggles are painfully evident. She embodies the anguish of someone trapped in a cycle of trauma, grappling with a past filled with abuse and betrayal. Her journey through Silent Hill reveals her deep-seated fears and the weight of her self-loathing. The town reflects her inner turmoil, manifesting her worst nightmares and the suffocating memories that cling to her like shadows. Angela's story is one of survival against overwhelming odds, and her interactions with James expose the vulnerability that lies beneath her partially hardened exterior. She is searching for a way to escape her pain, but in the twisted landscape of Silent Hill, each step only deepens her despair. And then there's Laura, who seems to wander into this chaotic world with a different purpose. Her presence in Silent Hill raises questions more than anything about innocence amid the horror surrounding her. Unaffected by the town's dark influence, Laura is determined to find Mary, and her relentless search stands in a stark contrast to the struggles faced between James, Eddie, and Angela. Some might view her as a savior figure. At least I do. She helps guide James toward the right path, leading him to their special place. And with her childlike curiosity and straightforward nature, she inadvertently forces James to confront his own guilt and motivations. Hell, depending on the ending, Laura may even play a crucial role in helping him escape the mists, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. In her, we see the possibility of redemption and the power of innocence to challenge the malevolent forces that seek to consume the others. Overall, this brings us to two critical questions. If Silent Hill exists within the Dread Realms, or at least stands in their periphery, what gifts or curses might the dark powers bestow upon those who enter? In the Dread Realms, the mists function as a universal bogeyman, a scapegoat for calamity. If a word worker, let's say, inadvertently amputates a finger, it's the work of the mists. If someone meets an untimely death, you can bet it's the mists that were at play. However, despite countless journals and studies by the scholars and sages prior to the spell plague, there remains no solid consensus on what these dark powers truly offer or demand in return. One might even assume that, having ventured into these lands as Volo or I have, we could uncover some truths about these enigmatic forces through careful study. Yet the reality is far more elusive. Knowledge just seems to slip away like sand through fingers, leaving only whispers and shadows behind. Consider the poignant words.
I can't tell you to remember me, but I can't bear for you to forget me.
This dying wish deeply resonates, illustrating the Dark Powers' cruel knack for fulfilling desires while twisting them into forms of torment. For James, this manifests into the fleeting remnants of a letter from his wife, which fades away until he ultimately uncovers the original. A cruel reminder of companionship gained through shared suffering. This theme of finding connection amidst adversity is a thread woven throughout many realms, a story that transcends literal time and space. As I reflect on the various endings of this interactive experience, I noticed a significant dialogue surrounding them. Many align with the psychological struggles faced by our protagonist, yet some have overlooked Mary's own poignant wish, the desire to adopt. This wish hints at a deeper, more hopeful narrative. With James emerging from his trials, it seems fitting that he would honor Mary's memory by adopting Laura. In doing so, he not only lives for himself, but also his new daughter, embodying the spirit of renewal and hope amidst despair. And this leads us to a final question regarding the origins of this cursed town. And no, I don't mean to focus solely on James's journey. We've explored that territory extensively as is, but instead I'm curious about the town itself. It's hard to imagine that it's always existed in this nightmarish state. The mists did not appear just overnight. They must have emerged from a time and place that preceded this horror. Somewhere within Silent Hill, a Dark Lord must reside, controlling the very gates that allowed the mists to even envelop the town and usher in lost souls, much like Strahd and Anton manipulate the boundaries of their own realms. Hell, there's even some subtle signs indicating that something, or someone, else is at play here, allowing the cycles of torment to continue.
What's with the seals?
To be honest, I find myself both intrigued and apprehensive at the thought of delving deeper into the occurrences within this realm. Having already navigated locations for 16 years on this subject, I've finally found a place devoid of real adverse effects or sinister oddities, save, of course, for the unseen servants maintaining the establishment with uncanny efficiency. And with the new iteration on the horizon, I have the opportunity to reacquaint myself with the Dread Realms through a narrative we know all too well. Yet, having experienced other projects by Bloober Team, I remain cautiously optimistic, to say the least. While my expectations may not be sky high, I genuinely hope for the best, eager to see how they weave familiar threads into fresh, unsettling stories. My final thoughts. Okay, well, the story unfolds through a blend of direct and subtle clues, rich with open-ended questions that compel me to delve deeper into this haunting world. The characters propel the narrative forward with their remarkable journeys, each one adding layers to the overall experience. And while the puzzles were pretty straightforward, even for hard mode, the action remained balanced, never overshadowing the profound storytelling. It feels as though the creators aimed to craft a cinematic experience. However, being tied to an interactive format may have shaped their vision a bit more. Perhaps it turned out for the best, as it steered clear from being overly derivative despite the echoes of familiar media. In the end, I'm giving this interactive a platinum rating. It was definitely an eerie experience that left a lasting impression. If you enjoyed this video, or have a similar experience, or even not so similar experience, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. And if you want to hear more about my thoughts and explorations, don't forget to subscribe here. You can also catch me on Twitch, where I stream this journey live. Unlike many others, I can't really be online 24/7, but I appreciate every single person who stops by and engages. Your presence means a lot, to be honest, especially as I navigate these unfolding stories. Thank you for joining me, and as always, stay safe out there, don't do anything reckless while I'm away, and until next time, cheers. Oh god, this soundtrack is so good. Who made this? Akira Yamaoka. Oh, that's a Tionjian name. What else has he done? Who is this? Oh, he has an album! Oh. Oh, that's weird. I guess that's par for the course.